I'm Marcy Johnson. I live in Harwich and I'm 72. I got involved with OLAUG kind of a long roundabout way. I had heard about it a couple of years ago and chuckled, said to a friend, that sounds like a group of people I could really get along with.
I found out about OLAUG, Old Ladies Against Underwater Garbage, through Susan Baur, who's a very dear friend of mine. We've actually been swimming together probably for 18 years.
We don't actually usually talk about our ages. However, I do know that Susan, the founder, is 84 and still a very active swimmer and a hot ticket.
Again, through swimming, we would pick up garbage anyway. Through that, a few years ago, she came up with the idea of let's form a group. And it makes a lot of sense because a lot of people want to help and really care about the environment. So I was kind of a shoo-in, so to speak. She knows I can swim, and that's where we came from.
I put it in the back of my mind, and then over the next few years, life happened. I had breast cancer and a double mastectomy in 2022 during COVID. It was a real life-altering experience, and I needed something. I needed something to get me back into feeling like myself. So I heard about they were going to have tryouts, and I met Susan at one of her events. It had been a long time since I'd been swimming, so I knew I could swim, but I hadn't in years. But she said, "You can do it."
I mean, she's a thoughtful person anyway, and she has always cared about the ponds and the turtles in the ponds. So I think it's kind of a natural progression to do something like this.
In order to be a member of OLAUG, you must be at least 64.
If you're going to join our group, you have to pass a swim test. You have to be able to swim well. You have to be able to go a mile in about a half an hour, which is not hard if you're an athlete, but you have to be able to swim.
My surgery was in October of 22, and in June were the tryouts. So I practiced and went to a local pool and went to the tryouts, and I made it.
Well, there are 23 of us. It's growing because I actually am collecting names. I do some work online to find people that are interested through Facebook and such. But from last year to this year, we went from 7 people to 23. So I've sent Susan probably a half a dozen names since September, October. Well, we know it's important because we know that plastics are not the best thing for the environment. They don't break down. They're here for, who knows, 1,000 years. So it's really important to get that stuff out of the water. And water is our biggest resource. It's really important for livelihood. So to me, that's a critical thing, and we need to pay attention.
I have really enjoyed this group. Not only is it good exercise and good camaraderie, but we get to do something wonderful for conservation.
The draw, I'm pretty sure, is number one, we're doing something bigger than ourselves. It's also an adventure. You're going under the water. You don't know what you're going to find.
We start out in groups. Susan will assign groups. The better swimmers swim out almost a mile and along the shoreline. And then the other swimmers we'll go out in groups of 2 or 3 with a kayaker with each one. And when we get to our starting point, the timer, our kayaker will be timing us. The haul is brought onto shore and is usually spread out, and they examine it, look at what we got, and is it old garbage or is it relatively new? I mean, we've had one pond where we had bottles that were well over 100 years old. So you knew that these were dropped probably by ice fishermen or boaters a long time ago. But there was very little current garbage, nip bottles, beer cans, vaping pens, things like that. Other times there'll be a lot more current garbage, so you get an idea of whether the pond associations are keeping up with it on their own or not, whether we're going to have to come back in a year or whether we're going to have to come back in 5 years.
The ponds that I have been in so far, we've done about 17 ponds this summer alone. So I've been to Goose Pond, I've been to Lover's Lake, which was our last dive was Lover's Lake, which was not a great dive because it's very weedy. We've done some in Falmouth, some in Brewster. There's a lot of ponds.
Makes me feel like a kid again every time I jump in the water. I get in there and I'm 12 years old with my mask and snorkel, and looking for stuff on the bottom of the pond.
Well, for me, my background is in fitness. I'm a corrective exercise specialist. So the most interesting thing that I have found was we found a 15-pound weight with a rope on it in one of the lakes, in one of the ponds. So to me, that was interesting. I'm like, what's this doing here?
I mean, we find something every time. Occasionally, we do a scouting expedition, usually a week or 2 ahead, to make sure that it's going to be worthwhile to do. 2 or 3 swimmers will go out and swim the area and look, and they do like a count as they're swimming. If they see enough that they say this is going to be definitely worthwhile, then we'll go ahead with it.
But we've found tires, which you would never expect to find in a pond, I would think. You find lots of hats, you find squirt guns. It's like, who would leave a squirt gun in the pond? Because that's a good toy,
We're diving down, we're swimming along, we're looking at the bottom to see what we can see, and you see a shape that doesn't look normal. It doesn't look like a piece of vegetation, it doesn't look like a rock, or something square, something long, something definitely man-made.
And we swim in all kinds of weather. Not bad weather, but it can be overcast, it can be chilly, it might be a little windy. So it's kind of an adventure, but it's also, you're out for a 90-minute swim most times. So you come out of the water, number one, you're chilled, but you're also elated because you're again, doing something bigger than yourself. Because we go in pairs. I mean, there's at least 2 people and a kayaker. And you have to be eyeball to eyeball the whole time, pretty much the whole time. When you come up, you got to keep an eye on your partner and your kayaker.
And there's a little competition too, because you always want to be the one to come up with the best piece of garbage. I needed something, and this has filled a huge spot for me. I must say, in a way, it did help me heal. There's something about being in the water and you're in an environment. It's totally silent. You hear only your own thoughts. You get to work through some issues that you have. And at the same time, you're with people.
Well, what captures me about OLAUG is a few things. Number one, I'm a people person. I love being with other people, and it is a group of women, which I think is fabulous. We girls just want to have fun. And the fact that it's a cleanup thing. I'm definitely a doer type of person. I call myself a Martha versus a Mary.
We get so wrapped up in what we're doing that we lose all track of time. So it's kind of hard to round us all up at the end. the women that are in this group are so amazing. Every person has their own story, but we're all at about the same stage of life.
I do see it replicating, absolutely. I mean, the more I talk about it online, the more people are like, can I do that? I'd like to be, and it's from all kinds of towns. Well, I believe in taking care of our homeland. I believe in taking care of our environment. You know, and I love to swim, and I want to be able to go in the water and know that it's safe.
Having cancer gave me the feeling that there is an end to my life coming up, and I want to do something. I want to give back, and I want to do it in such a way that I'm having fun at the same time.